call, I will welcome committee members Joan Gay, Ed
Hi.
Bailey, Beverly Lawrence, Laura Francis, chairpersons Leslie Strauss and Joe Simolas, uh, staff Joe Comerford, our consultant David Lee, and Jonathan Shapiro, welcome, who is the attorney for Matt and did a lot of recommended changes on the MOA. So we do have a quorum. The next item is the review of minutes for our last meeting on January 15th. Again, I don't need to go over these in any detail. I think we sent a copy out, right, Joe?
Yes.
Okay, if you have any suggested changes, please get them into Joe. Our board is meeting on Thursday, the 28th, and to approve the final MOA document, and we will be approving all those meeting minutes at that time. Hopefully, one motion for a gazillion minutes. So that takes us to a discussion of the MOA. I'm going to make just a few introductory comments and then ask Jonathan if he can take us through his changes, and then we have a couple of additional changes suggested by estuary attorney Susanna McCauley. Number one, Dave, you and I will track the changes and provide the final version. So hopefully between you and me, we'll be able to keep everything we discuss. As we go through this, some of these are, I would say, editorial changes or little clarifications. I don't think we need to dwell on those. If you're satisfied with the change that's been proposed, we'll just move on. If you do have a question or want to change anything, let us know. I don't know why I don't have, sorry. I just realized I'm not showing up in the video. There we go. Let us know. There is a lot to get through, so I'd like for us to spend our discussion time on the significant items. And hopefully at the end of the process, all of you will have enough confidence in Dave and me to, number one, get the changes right, and number two, to make any minor editorial changes that seem appropriate. One of the things we will be doing is reformatting the MOA in a more usual format. Right now it starts with an alpha ABC. It should start with numeric first. So where there's an A, there'll be a 1, etc. So having said all that, let's turn it over to Jonathan. And I think you all received a copy of his redlined version, which makes it very easy to see the changes that he is proposing. There's an overall different context that Jonathan will explain to us, which is why we can't use the term merger, and why where you used to see merger, it now says expansion. Having teed it up for you that way, Jonathan, it's all yours.
Thank you, and thank you for letting me join you this morning. I think you teed it up great, because I would say 90% of my changes encompass that issue. I was talking to Joe yesterday, Joe Comerford, about it a little bit, and I said, you've got the old axiom of if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. But in this case, it looks like a merger. It is a merger in every way, shape, and form, but we're not going to call it a merger. And largely it's driven by the statute, because the transit districts are creatures of the legislation. There's actually nothing in the legislation that speaks about merging of entities or otherwise. It does talk about the concept of a transit district purchasing a private transit district, but doesn't talk about kind of this unique situation that we're in between Estuary and Middletown Transit. So the vast majority of the changes that I made are to track what the statute provides for in terms of how a member joins a transit district and things of that nature. I didn't address in here kind of the exiting of the Middletown Transit for their member parties. I think that can be done separate from this, but that was, again, the driving point for, I would say, 90% of the changes that I made. I tried to keep, I try not to make changes of form over substance, and try to avoid that, and happy to entertain any questions. The other thing I did in terms of some of the changes were just in talking with Joe, making sure we are capturing the full intent of what we're trying to achieve between the two districts in terms of funding down the road for the district particularly from the state funding aspect of this. So again, happy.
Jonathan, excuse me, I just want to welcome Angus. Angus
Okay.
McDonald is.
Sure.
Thank you. Good to
Yep.
see you, Angus. Sorry, go ahead.
No problem. And so-
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
I have my document open. Are you going to be going over specific sections of the document? If so, I think it would be helpful for us if we had the document displayed on the screen.
Sure, I can do that if you'd like. Again, I didn't know how we wanted to walk through these, if you had specific questions. But happy to do that if that's what's best for everyone. And I can point out exactly what I did and why I did it.
I think that's a good suggestion. If we could just keep in mind too, if it looks minor or editorial or no one has a problem with it, we need to keep moving because there's so much to cover.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I gave you permission to share, Jonathan.
All right, I'm just bringing up the document now, so bear with me 1 second. Sorry, it's just opening on my side here, and there we go. Okay, it should be up there now.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. I'll skip section A and I'll just go right into section B. Because section A is, again, form over substance. Section B, again, the driving language here is in the document was referred to as a merger and dissolution of the Middletown Transit District. But again, since the statute doesn't call for that, I described it as the equivalent of a merger by our towns withdrawing from the Middletown Area Transit, resulting in the cessation of its operations and then joining of our members into the estuary members. I thought that, again, that was the best way to track the statute, because the statute expressly provides how someone withdraws from a transit district not deal with the issue of a transit district completely ceasing its operations. And again, that part can deal with separately for Middletown Transit. Again, section C here, opening paragraph, again, more form over substance there. Paragraph 4, again, just specifying that we're joining as opposed to a merger. Paragraph subsection 6 there. Again, my understanding is one of the things we're trying to capture here is ensuring to the extent possible that the funding levels for the combined expanded estuary district does not change from the separate funding that each district had separately. So again, tried to capture that in at least general terms. And I know there's some other comments on that section as well.
I have one comment on section C8.
Okay.
The section in italics, the percentages of that sentence should be removed from the MOA. That is an issue between the two districts and does not involve Department of Transportation.
Sure thing.
Yeah, that's already out.
Oh, I thought so, Dave. Okay, thank you. Keep going.
Okay. Again, paragraph 11, just, and I know there's something in the works and I'm working on it on our end. But, you know, as I know this transition begins to happen, there's going to be some shared expenses in terms of employee sharings and things of that nature. This is kind of a catch-all to make sure that to the extent we're not having to go back to the MOA every single time that an adjustment needs to make, and it needs to happen to, so the idea here was to capture anything subsequent to this MOA being entered that has to be done to effectuate what we're trying to achieve. We can do it in a separate agreement and not go back and amend this each time.
This is just a nit, but on number 11, I think it should be the boards of directors, plural, because otherwise it connotates that there's only one director on the board. And I think I found it in a couple of other instances too.
Yep, I'll make that mass change.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'll incorporate that.
Okay, thank you,
comment,
David.
When I update the
Okay.
draft.
Hey, governance, again, this is all these changes here were largely driven by, you know, making sure we're complying with the statute as it provides for the joining of a member into, joining of a municipality into a transit district. Again,
Jonathan, I have a question on number 4.
okay.
You've added in there that the boards of directors will approve the bylaws prior to members joining ETD. If they haven't joined, and we discussed this a little bit before, if they haven't joined estuary yet, how can they have the standing to approve the estuary board bylaws?
So my understanding is the way what we're hoping to do, and if this isn't correct, let me know. But the idea was to help develop the bylaws. So when everyone joins on day one, we've got a full functioning set of bylaws for the expanded estuary district. So at least my thought process on that was we're obviously going to be working together to develop those bylaws. And so and maybe it's a function of timing, but each transit district is separately going to approve the same set of bylaws. At least on the MAT side, it would be, we're going to approve what we want the bylaws to look like. On the estuary side, again, presuming that we've all come to an accord on that to make sure it's clear going in rather than everyone joins and now we're starting from scratch. So it's more to
Okay.
hit the ground running.
Thanks. That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay. Staffing, again.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Sure.
This is Leslie. Could you just go back to 2 for a second?
Yep.
I just don't get the grammar on it. Appendix A includes a list of towns that are voting members of MAM ETD as of the date this MOA is executed, which shall the members of ETD, when the MAP member owns, join. I don't understand what you're saying here. I'm sorry.
Sure.
How about Leslie? That's an editorial change. Let's
Yeah.
let David and
There we
me.
go.
deal
Yeah,
with that.
I think there's a typo,
Yeah, there's a
Leslie.
typo
It's
there.
not the word owns, it should be towns.
Yeah.
And if you read that as member
Oh.
towns join,
Yep.
then it makes sense.
Remember, towns join in accordance with the
Yep.
they're gonna as amended. Thank you. I didn't.
Thank you.
I
Sorry
couldn't
about
figure it. That's okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
Going on to staffing, again, I just wanted to be a little less definitive here of rather than saying there shall be no adverse impact. That's obviously the goal. I want it to be a little less definitive to make sure that to the extent there are changes down the road, that there's no expectation that someone has a job or doesn't have a job down the road. From a liability standpoint, I just wouldn't want this to be used to the detriment of the transit district down the road.
I had a question about that, so thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah, again, the idea is, look, I mean, I've been doing this long enough that people pick up on anything, and
Mhm.
I don't want anyone to think they have a guaranteed job because most of the employees are at will as it is, subject to, except for on the union side, which is, a different animal, but still, I just,
Makes sense.
I thought it was best to protect everyone. Again, paragraph 2 is along the same lines. That's the proposed staffing, but we know what we're expecting it to look like now. We don't know what it may look like in 6 months or a year.
Can we, and I think Dave Lee had a question about that provision.
They-
Um,
My concern about that change is that we're putting in the appendix what we think the organization charts will look like in July of this year and July of next year. And that's what we're telling Conduct they need to commit to funding. It undermines a little bit the requirement that Conduct commit to funding whatever staffing plan we come up with if you say, but it may change.
What if we said, which may be adjusted by mutual agreement of the parties based on the expected needs of MAT and ETD? Does that resolve your
Yes.
question,
Yep.
David?
That
How-
resolves mine. Is that
Would
okay?
that- Would that work, Jonathan?
That works for me. You know, the other way we can, sorry, I'm thinking out loud here. Because I hear your point, David. I think that's fine if it addresses your concern. The only other thing I was going to suggest is, you know, just capturing that aspect of it, of that this is going to go to Condot. So
Well, see, the item 3 in that section is Conduct's commitment to provide whatever the increased funding is required for new positions.
right,
So you wouldn't want to say that the new positions that we outlined in the appendix, we might have more. And
right.
and who's going to pay for those? So I really like Susan's suggestion that we make it adjustable by mutual agreement. But there is a commitment to fund the additional positions that are called for in the
What if we do?
the organization charts.
What if we do it this way, which is the minimum, you know, setting this as the floor of this is the minimum we expect. That way, if there's an increase down the road, you cover that because you don't want to lose what you're asking for. But again, to the extent something changes, you can address it that way.
It may not be the minimum, though. That assumes, that
Yeah,
assumes, go ahead, David.
Well, I like your suggestion that, you know, the organization chart is what it is, and we show it in the appendix, but by mutual agreement of the parties, that can change.
Without addressing a minimum or a maximum or the specifics of the particular position.
Yeah,
Fine with me.
okay.
Anybody else on that point? Okay. Go ahead, Jonathan.
I think the balance of this page of the staffing is self-explanatory. Again, just consistent with not calling it a merger and expanding.
I had on number 4,
Yep.
you've taken out that they will provide TODs for these positions. We had on or before. You took out or before. How about we say by the date of this MOA?
I think that works.
Yes.
Yep.
Is that okay? All
Yep.
right. And also under number 6, that we'll enter into an employee services sharing agreement, which I know, Jonathan, you're working on. Does this really need to be in there? Is this any of DOT's business? I guess that's maybe a question for Joe.
I guess I look at it, and I'll let Joe chime in, but I look at it from the perspective of, my understanding is correct, is some of these positions may involve funding from transportation. So that's why I included it.
Would it be more appropriate having it in the bylaws rather than here?
I wouldn't put it in the bylaws because
No?
because this is a temporary arrangement as opposed to a permanent.
This really
Okay.
speaks to the side letter that was in the italicized sentence that we took out of the staffing section
Right.
that basically said there will be and there's going to be a side letter. So if that, because at some point the two boards need to have a letter agreement that talks about how at least 2 of the staff people, Joe and Helena, how their time is allocated between ETD and MAT.
Look, and it's, sorry to jump in, David, but it's probably covered under C11 anyway, as another agreement that's necessary to ensure the smooth and efficient transition.
Mhm.
I think we approve and agree. So to that extent, we can certainly remove it.
Good.
Because I think it's captured by that as well.
Okay, so we'll be in agreement with that. We will remove E6.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Finances, again, I think these changes were all largely driven by, again, the concept of expanding as opposed to of a merger. I think every one of these changes deals with that. Section 4, again, just in talking to Joe, I know the idea here is to making sure we capture every dollar that we would have otherwise have gone as separate agencies into one. I know there's some comments on that as well, I think from Susanna as well, that addresses some of those issues. But again, that's what those comments were driven by. Any questions on? Yeah?
I did, Jonathan, on C4, that seems to suggest that at some point, if the state's budgetary situation requires cuts to its public transit districts, that this would preclude them from applying those cuts to us. And I don't have any problem with keeping it in there, but if I were DOT, I would take that out.
Yeah, I expect that there will be some level of pushback on our goal of capturing every dollar that we can, but you don't ask, you don't get.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm
Well,
good.
Can I just ask a question of Joe Comerford? So Joe, have you done the math? Like, if we are the size district as we are going to become, does our funding level equal to that of what we're getting now separately?
It's larger
It's larger.
because we're adding these positions that don't
Okay.
currently exist. So even though we're sharing some, we're still adding more than we are saving.
Okay.
Um,
So,
and there's certain grants. There's a few. Like one in particular that's every year is our rural training assistance program, and that is given by district. It's a small amount of money. It's $5,000 per district, but that's just like one. That's one that's every year. That's by the district, and doesn't matter your size. You get $5,000. But sometimes other things are done that way, are kind of done by district too. Like when we just did all this CARES money. Yeah, that was kind of by district somewhat. So we're trying to think of anything that, kind of like we did with the COGS, we looked at what are some, we want to make sure there's no punishment for having done this.
right. So this inclusion of this provision kind of sends a message that that's on our radar. But if it has to come out because they won't sign it with it in there, there's little risk. Is that what you're saying? That we're going to get adequate funding?
Yeah, it's been, like I said, there's only a few small things that are per district. And the only other one that might is that the dollar ride funding that Middletown gets, because they are one of 5 agencies in the state that get that funding. And it's just historic, goes back to like the early 90s. And we want to make sure we don't lose that, because that is 100 and something thousand a year. I can't remember offhand, but it funds most of our dollar ride program.
So if we're going to get pushback on that, on this general statement, should we include something more specific to that funding stream?
I think if they push back, I think Susan's more worried about the pushing back on the second part of the statement, and that is the not basically that wouldn't allow them to cut us.
Exactly.
I don't know if they'll push back as much on the first part. Probably that the imperpetuities part they might push back on, but I think initially they'll agree that, oh yeah, you're not going to get hurt by anything. We're not going to hurt you tomorrow, but they won't want to commit to that forever. But
Well, I don't know if legally they can. So.
right in part two, I think the solution to that, when they come back to that, would be something like that. We would give an exception for statewide reductions. So if they do it across the board, say 2% cut like they've done in the past, that might be our agreement, as long as it applies to all transit districts, including CT Transit. Because as Dave knows, that's usually their thing. They cut all the transit districts and leave CT Transit whole.
I have a question again. Can we stay on F4 for 1 second? How is it that we can expect the state to sign this and guarantee federal funds?
It would be the
Is it
federal
under-
funds it would be the federal funds they control.
Do we have to specify that?
I think this clause is going to be a negotiating point anyway.
Right.
So at that
Yeah, if they
time,
want to,
we can start elaborating all the different points.
Okay, thanks.
That's my thought.
Okay,
but particularly the rural funds, they control that, and both districts get a pass-through federal operating funds from the state. So they're federal funds, but they are passed through, so the state does determine how they're spent.
Okay, thanks.
I think Ed's right. Any other questions on section F? Okay, section G.
Okay, G, relative minor. I guess we got to adjust number 2 here.
Correct.
On the change above in section E6 there.
Mhm.
Again, this was to, because there's a share arrangement, I thought it should be captured somehow. So why don't we just say, other than any employee share agreement that may be reached.
That's fine. Dave, are you okay on that? I know you had a concern.
I didn't understand what the word share applied to. You're talking about the cost sharing of insurance benefits?
No, sharing of employees. So
Oh,
I've done this in, other contexts and, with Joe and, in particular, providing services to both, it covers those rules. And I know that, again, the maintenance director, maintenance manager rather, coming on board, and things of that nature, it needs to be captured in some fashion or other.
all right. Now I understand. So
Jonathan,
what
could
was your
you-
language?
yeah,
I
could you,
put-
the language?
I put in other than any employee share agreement that may be reached
Okay,
between, I'll say between MAT and ETD, just so it's clear.
Okay, so put in the word be, may be reached.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My fingers don't do what my mind says sometimes.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good.
Any other questions on operations?
No.
Okay. The facility section in H, that was largely a couple of just minor comments again, just capturing the expansion as opposed to the merger, differentiation in language. Special studies, no changes in there.
Oh, wait. Under facilities,
Yep.
I had a question under 3. The second sentence there says the parties agree to complete the purchase of land and programming. Isn't this simply a DOT responsibility? We have nothing to do with paying for land acquisition, do we? Should that say the parties, or should it say CTDOT?
I still think it'd be the parties, because as I understand it, we'll still be on, the district will still be entitled to any purchase that occurs. At least that was my understanding.
We're hopeful,
Hopeful.
but we don't know what they'll do yet.
Given that uncertainty, would you still opt for the parties, Jonathan?
I would say keep it as the parties, because
Yeah, because I mean, they could technically opt to let us purchase the property and give us the money.
you could finesse this by not worrying about who has to. If you started the sentence, the purchase of land and programming of capital funding for all new facilities shall be completed by, and the parties are agreeing to it.
Well, that would work. Is that acceptable to you, Jonathan?
It's fine by me.
Okay, you've got that language, Dave?
I'm putting it in now.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions or concerns on that particular point? Okay, I know going forward, we do really want the title to those facilities to accrue to the district and not stay with the state. Okay.
We don't have that anywhere in there. Is it something we want in there?
I'm picking up on that point, Joe, from conversations you and I have had.
Yeah, we've discussed it many times, but we did not put it in. What's your opinion, Jonathan?
Well, I mean, look, again, if it's what we want, we don't ask, we don't get. So why don't we make it clear?
Okay.
That the
That's,
purchase of
that's
land-
exactly what I think on that one. We need to
Okay,
make it
Angus.
clear right from the beginning.
Yeah.
So
All right.
what's the sentence, Joe?
Jonathan,
I'll let Jonathan do it. I mean,
Okay.
because the other question, we probably wouldn't take title till everything's built. If they're doing the purchasing in the building, it would probably be turned over once it's all done. Right, and not as soon as they buy.
okay. So Jonathan, could you come up with some language that satisfies you on that point?
Yeah, why don't we just add at the end of that sentence, with title to vest in E ETD?
That works for me.
Is vest,
Angus?
vest is the proper legal term?
I think it's a fine legal term.
Okay, good. Title to vest in ETD. That's-
What I
I'll-
usually use.
I'll dress it up, but no, that's very good. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you, Jonathan.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Anything in H there? Okay, I, there were no changes. Any comments on I? Thought that was straightforward. Okay, hearing none, we'll go to capital projects. Again, same concept here, just made changes relative to the merged entity and calling it the expansion of the ETD.
Jonathan, on J3, you have there that DOT will provide funding. We had there a commitment of funding because it isn't DOT's funding that's going to pay for this bus. It's federal funding. Do we need to say a commitment of funding as opposed to provide funding?
I think that was based on my conversation with Joe. Joe, so I'll let you chime in there. Unless I misunderstood something we talked about.
Well, it's not pass-through money, but it is, they provide the match. And I think it's okay. I think let them try and change it if they want to change it.
Okay,
Even though we're direct on that, they do have to provide the match and they do provide the split agreement. So
okay.
Okay, so
still
the,
it's something they have to do.
so the grammar on that sentence, because you got the shalls in there, again, where do you want your shall?
You just leave it as is. See,
Well, oh, I see there's a dot over there, shall be committed. Never mind. I got some cursor.
No, I think the shall be committed comes out, right?
Yeah,
So
it's
the
shall
sentence
provide.
reads, CTDOT shall provide funding for purchase of a trolley bus for downtown Middletown service by June 1st, 2021.
Thank you. That's it.
Yep.
Okay.
There you go. Okay. Section K, again, just changing the title here from merger into ETD expansion with respect to the funding requirements. Again, all the changes here were trying to be as broad as possible, but again, capturing it within the expansion as opposed to calling it the merger.
Jonathan, we do have some substantial change to this section recommended by Estuary's attorney, which we'll circle back on later. But for now, what's in there is fine, I think.
And Joe did provide me with those, and I looked at those as well, and I thought they looked good.
Okay, okay. Hopefully you can stay with us while we go through her changes as well
Yeah.
later. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, L is just,
No self-explanatory.
okay,
And again, I think these are all just driven by the language change of not calling it a merger and calling it again just the expansion by the joining of the MAT members to ETD.
Okay,
And I think that's everything.
it is. Any other comments, concerns, or suggestions from any of the committee members on Jonathan's recommended changes?
Yeah, you know me with my grammar. Can we go back to E for 1 second, just making sure that we
Okay.
have, there
You're
was
like a
just,
pit
we're
bull.
missing one teeny tiny word, I think, where we made a change. I did, let me find section E5. Personnel policy, the expanded ETD shall provide increased operating funds inserted. No, that's not. Okay, oh, maybe it was 4. TOD specialist position shall be provided by CTDOT by,
By the date this MOA is executed.
Yeah, we made that
okay,
change.
there was an of that I wanted in there. Where the hell was it? TOD special provided, TOT. Okay, and now I can't find it, so it must be perfect.
Right.
Sorry.
That's okay. If you find it, shoot it over to David.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan, for yours. Now, let's move to Susanna's recommendations. She had 3. The first was section C6, which was the fact that the FTA is not a party to this agreement. And I think when I talked to Joe about this, the reasoning here was that DOT does control some of the FTA funds, and that it would make sense for us to leave the FTA in and let DOT take it out if that was problematic for them. Any comments on that one? That was C6.
I agree with that approach.
Me too.
Okay, so we'll incorporate that one too, Dave. Oh, actually, that's no change, so.
No, we're leaving that alone.
Yep, don't have to do anything there. Okay, section F under finances. This was I thought, a good cat.
Is everyone seeing it? Does everyone
It's
see it
hard
on
to
the screen?
read. It's very small.
Okay, let me try
Yes,
and
I see it.
zoom in.
Basically, what this provision has states is that if we lose any grants as a result of the merger, that CDTOT agrees to replace them. And there are a couple of smallish grants, right, Joe, that this might apply to?
Yes, there are a few small ones that we get that this could apply to. Like,
And I think your example of the RTAP money is a perfect example. Right now, each district gets an allocation, and if there is a merger, they should not cut the total allocation to the expanded ETD.
right. Yeah, that's one. One that's not FTA at all or DOT is our AAA grant, which does the fares for seniors. So
Okay.
not that there's any reason why we should lose it because of this, but there are some things that there are some small ones out there.
What's the value of the AAA grant?
20,000, 20 or
And
22.
that comes from
22,000.
AAA?
Yeah.
Oh.
The one out of Norwich.
But wouldn't that be a negotiation with AAA and not with DOT?
I mean, I can't see they'd have any reason, but you know, it's such that some of the towns are covered in that same AAA region. But I think her intent was just that if for some reason we lost it directly because of this merger, then CONDOT would replace it. But I mean, I don't see why we would for this one in particular, but
I think this fits into Jonathan's philosophy, which is if you don't ask for it, you'll never get it anyway. So let's ask for it. And if it comes out, it comes out.
That's fine. I got it.
Yeah, and
agreed.
the massaging to not call it the merger.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah,
I already
we'll go
caught that.
Okay,
We'll go back to expansion.
yep.
Okay, is everyone comfortable with that change from Susanna?
Yes,
Okay. All right, section K, her third section is language that does two things. It restates all of the areas in the MOA where we ask for DOT agreement to provide funding, number one. And number two, at the very end of that paragraph, this is a new element, which I think is an interesting one and is helpful, which is that if either of the districts together or singly incur any cost or expenses as a result of the relying on the DOT's commitment to this merger, and then the merger doesn't occur, that we would be reimbursed for any of those costs. Again, I think this would be a heavy lift for DOT, but if we don't ask for it, we certainly wouldn't get it. Jonathan, your point of view on this one?
It's consistent with what we've been talking about.
Okay. How about everybody else?
I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Restating all those areas of funding is duplicative, but not a bad idea to put it all in one place.
No, that's fine.
Okay, all righty. So that's it for Susanna's. And as others have had a chance to think about any of what we've discussed, or maybe things we haven't discussed, does anyone else have any additional comments or suggestions on changes to the MOA or the appendices? Okay, there being none, I would like to ask for a motion, and it would be nice to have a motion from one district and a second from the other, and deference to our commitment to collaboration, which has worked really well, I think, in this process. This motion would be a motion to recommend this memorandum of agreement with appendices as revised today for approval by the MAT and ETD boards of directors. May I have a
So moved by
Ed Bailey? Okay,
I'll second.
second by
Thank you.
Angus. Thank you. Discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Dissent? I mean, not, what's it called? Abstention. I got all
Wait,
mixed.
did I hear a no vote?
Oh,
Okay, I was just slow getting into the eyes.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, what?
All right, this is very exciting. Okay, so Dave and I will massage this document, and our board meets on Thursday, rather, Estuary does, and it will approve it at that point. So we will be sending it out, and we'll send it out a copy of the final version to all of the committee members here. So then the next item on the agenda is a staffing discussion, and I'm going to hand it over to Joe, who's going to give us a status update on his idea of a special projects manager and how that would be described, funded, and in fact, he has a live candidate for that position. So go ahead, Joe.
All right, let me share so I sent out
Before you do that, say, Jonathan, if you need to depart,
I was going to ask whether you needed me for anything else or if you'd like to dismiss me.
we we want to excuse you if you'd like to leave and have other things to do, with our thanks and
No problem at
appreciation.
all.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. We'll talk
Thank
to you
you.
soon.
take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Okay, so I did send out a possible job description, and I put that together using one that another transit district I got from another transit district. But here's kind of a summary of what the job is. And essentially, if you saw the job description, it really is just kind of assisting us in all the various studies and activities that are going to have to occur to make all this happen over the next about 2 years. And as we thought about more, probably figured it's really going to go through the end of fiscal year 2023, because that's that kind of that year that we will be winding down activities at MAT. So there'll be work involved there, and also just kind of, ensuring that the two come together well in the 2023 year. So what we kind of are expecting for a salary range is somewhere between 50 and 60,000, plus benefits comes to 90,200, and sharing that cost equally between the two districts.
And Joe, that's using existing funding, not asking DOT.
Right. With our two districts' CARES funds, both districts have plenty of funding to cover the cost of this position. It's combined, we have over 4 million combined in CARES funds. So, we certainly have sufficient funds to cover it for that period. And split equally.
So Joe, you're calling this a contract position that is set to sunset after the merger is complete?
Yes, and I do have it sent to the labor attorney for exactly how that should be worded and all that. She said she'll get back to me by next week. So she's working on that and exactly how it should look to properly do what we want it to do.
Okay. If we come to rely on this person and see value in keeping him or her to manage special projects, because there will always be one, a new grant opportunity, a new service, whatever. We would have the ability to revisit this position and status of this position, won't we?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something we've been discussing is, we know that this, at least during this period, there's going to be a lot going on and we need it. But yeah, there's certainly an opportunity for us to say, this is something we need more permanently. We know facilities are going to be going on for several years. The terminal renovation project, and then the renovation project of the existing, facility down at 91 North Main. So yeah, there's a lot of big projects even after all this is done. So it's certainly conceivable that we might decide we need more assistance. And then that time, at any point we can go back to CONDOT and say we need to make this a permanent position and try and negotiate with them to fund some or all of it, depending on what we can negotiate with them.
Okay.
And Joe, you also added this position to the organization charts in
I
the
did.
appendix, which is good.
And I just want to confirm, this was not in the study.
This was not, no.
Right. Okay.
No, what? So in the study, there was one other position that the consultants, and pretty much all of us except Condot, well, even Condot initially, felt would be a good position to have, and that was a transit planner. That's a common position in an agency. You know, we're kind of like right on that brink of whether we would have one or not. And so one of the first charts did have a transit planner in there, and some of this would be stuff you would give to a planner to do. But when Condot saw the total of all the new positions, that one got pulled out. So there initially was a recommendation for one other position. And as I said, that was a planner. So since we don't have that in the study now or in the org chart, this at least kind of fills that for a short-term period. But if we were
Joe?
looking at long-term, it would probably be a planner job is what we'd be looking at.
Is the projected or the suggested salary sufficient to entice the right person for this position?
We know at least we have at least one person interested in it at that
This
salary,
at this
in
salary
that
level?
range. Yeah, but it's possible that if we had to look for others, it might have to go up.
Can you share,
But-
Joe, with the committee who the current candidate is?
Yeah, so our previous, Lisa Gibson's predecessor, Chris Dennison, is interested in it. She's currently not working because she was working at Steam Train, and obviously they've been severely impacted by the pandemic. So she's available, and she was certainly doing some of this stuff for us before she left, handling some of our big RFPs we had going on at the time. So I think she's very capable of handling this, and she's somebody that we could have a lot of confidence in and keeping things on track. And so I think she'd be really good because it's gonna be hard to get somebody short term for do something like this.
Okay, well,
Available.
back to this salary question then. Would you, I mean, if we're authorizing you to go ahead and use the CARES Act money to do this, should we also be giving you a little more leeway with salary? I'd hate for you to lose the right person. This seems low to me. Am I the only one that thinks it's low?
I don't think it's low, given what her current or most recent position was.
Well, but yeah, but what if it's not her? What if she says, I can't do it? I would like Joe to just be able to go forward without having to have a bunch of meetings with a little more leeway in the salary aspect of it, if you all think that's appropriate.
Other comments on that? Joe, do you need more?
Yeah, I don't think the salary should necessarily be based on what she was earning before. It
No, I
should be based upon what the position requires.
That's what I'm trying to say. I just didn't spit it out very well. Thanks, Joan. I mean, Angus, you have thoughts on the salary? You hire people all the time.
You're muted.
You're still muted.
I'm trying. I couldn't get my computer to get over there. I don't know what the job entails, so I don't know what the salary rate should be. I do believe that you should not base the salary on an individual. You should base it on the position. So I agree with what Joan said and what Leslie is trying to say.
I'll show the full. I'll pull up the full job description.
There's also the issue of how this position relates to existing highly paid positions at EDT. I'm speaking specifically of Helena. And I don't have a problem with giving Joe some leeway on the salary. And in fact, this salary information is provided really so for informational purposes, so that we understand that we're not talking about a $30,000 a year job. We're talking about something greater than that. Joe seems to feel that that will be sufficient to attract someone. Perhaps in our motion, we include language that something to the effect that at a salary commensurate with the responsibilities.
So I would have a question for Joe, if you don't mind. Joe, have you got any comparisons, salary comparisons to maybe other transit districts that might have a similar position, or?
I only know of one other right now, because this type of thing where it's just a temporary type work. I could find out what they're paying.
What if we included that language in a motion that said at a salary commensurate with responsibilities to be determined by the executive director? Are people comfortable with that, knowing what the salary range is that we're in the ballpark of? Yes, no?
Yeah, I would be comfortable with that.
I would be
Beverly?
Joe. I would be Joe.
Beverly? Did we lose Beverly?
I'm sorry.
She's muted.
Did you just vote? I'm a yes. Did you just
Okay.
vote? I'm
No,
sorry.
no. We're
I'm
talking
sorry.
about,
Oh, I'm
That's-
sorry. I had to address something, so.
no problem. No, we were talking about how the motion would be worded. Are there any other questions about this position? And moving on it quickly, because the motion that I will lay out, and once again, it would be nice to have one from each district motioning and seconding, would be that we would recommend its approval by the ETD and MAT boards.
Yes, and I would leave it up to the full boards of each district to agree on the cost.
Okay.
Is that appropriate?
What you missed then, Laura, was what we talked
Sorry.
about, which that would be included in the motion that would say at a salary commensurate with responsibility to be determined by the executive director.
Perfect.
Okay. Any other comments or suggestions or questions of Joe? And I assume too that, he would be free to interview, pick and select whatever candidate he felt was the best fit for the job. Okay. I think it would be nice, even though it's not required, for us to have a motion, and I will read something and ask for a motion from each group. A motion to recommend the establishment of a special projects manager position whose funding is to be shared equally by MAT and ETD at a salary commensurate with responsibilities to be determined by the executive director to assist in implementation of the expansion of ETD for approval by the MAT and ETD boards of directors. May I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And that is you, Joan?
Joan.
Joan, okay, and a second. Laura, or
Second from MAT.
Yeah.
second by Ed. Okay. Good, thank you. We will forward that along too. All right.
Can
We
we
have
vote?
discussion? Susan, we need discussion?
Do we,
Oh, I'm sorry, we need a vote and discussion. Yeah, I'm already.
Yeah, on
Moving
the
ahead.
discussion, I have discussion. Do you have in that motion when this position starts, or is that not relevant?
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay, so that can be immediate.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Any other discussion? Okay, there being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, the motion is carried. Excellent. I think we all feel, Joe, that as soon as you can get somebody on there, the better off it's going to be for everybody, especially you.
Yes.
Okay, I do have one, Laura and I have one item for an executive session. I would like to entertain a motion to go into, this won't take long, an executive session at 12:02. May I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Jones? And
Yeah, I'll second. Can you specify who's going to be in the executive session?
Right, we need to invite others and
Yes,
if we.
Leslie will be invited in, Joe Samalas will be invited in, Dave Lee and Joe Comer will be invited in. Okay, are we, has the recording stopped? Going out of executive session at 12:06 PM? And we're almost there, everyone. Next steps are that the respective boards will meet, excuse me, and approve the MOA and its appendices for transmission to DOT. Our board is meeting Thursday of this week. Laura, do you know when or Joe, when the MAP board is scheduled to meet?
We do not have a date yet. So I had only heard from 2 members. So I sent out an email today because we haven't gotten there yet, but we're going to talk about not having our joint meeting at 11 on Friday of this group. So I had sent out to ask if 11 o'clock on Friday would be good for the MAT special board meeting since everyone already had that time blocked off.
Can you guys agree to that? All 4 of you are on this call or were.
Well, I'm gonna be on the road, and hopefully I'll have internet connection. I can join in.
Yeah, I've already agreed.
Yeah.
Joe
Yeah.
Simone,
Yeah, it works for me. This is Beverly.
Okay.
Beverly, okay. And Joe Simolis? He's on mute.
Well, you already know that as long as you have a quorum, I think you're good. You already know I'm a yes.
Okay.
Okay.
It's just important that we get this done so that we can get this out next week.
Right.
Not so.
Oh,
Joe-
yeah.
Joe,
No,
come first. Why don't you keep dogging this until you get what you need to have that meeting? Okay.
I will.
The next thing for next steps is we will transmit to DOT and we will begin work on bylaws revisions for the expanded district. As Joe said, we did have a regularly scheduled meeting on January 29th, which we no longer need as the joint MOA committee. Our next regularly scheduled meeting would be February 12th. We had it at 11 a.m. I'm aware of a conflict for one of our members at that time and would like to ask if we could change that meeting for February 12th only from 11 to 1 p.m. Would that be agreeable to everyone?
I'm good with that.
Yes, that's fine.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, Beverly?
It doesn't work for me. 11 does because I have a previous meeting at 1. Well, actually 12. So
Will you be done by 1? Could we do 1:30?
I could do 1:30.
Would 1:30 be good for people? It's important. There's going to be a lot of discussion here.
Yeah, 1:30 is good for me.
Angus and Ed,
It's fine.
Yeah, what date is that again?
It's
Friday.
a Friday.
February 12th.
Well,
How about
1:30 is
you?
fine.
Okay,
Yeah,
Joan,
1:30 is fine.
thank you. Joan?
Yep.
Okay, all righty, good. So the next meeting is February 12th at 1:30 p.m. Thank you, Beverly. We're Glad everyone will be able to attend. Is there any other old business?
And Joe, you'll send an invite amendment?
I am sending it right now.
All right.
Okay, and we will send everyone a discussion document that Dave and I worked on the bylaws changes and the differences between the two districts. And most of it is, there's a lot of it, but it's imminently resolvable, we think. Any other,
Yeah, I'll
Pardon?
work on that after we get the MOA squared away.
any
I
new
have a
business? Sure.
quick question, Joe. There were two of the appendices were going to be modified. One is the special. There was an appendix that has cost-related sections from the transit study, and I
Yes.
think you were going to get from the MPO a different formatting of those.
I have that.
You have it? Okay, perfect.
Yep.
And
I
the
have
other
all the charts.
and the other was the implementation plan that was going to be revised based on the last conversation.
I got that too.
Okay, can you
I'll send them
those?
both to you.
If you'll send
Yep.
them to me, then I'll put the whole package together.
Okay, great.
Revisions we
Um,
made this morning.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect.
Thanks. Any new business? There being none, I just
Well,
want.
wait, I just wanted to make a comment. I don't know if it's considered new business. I mean, I've been just sitting here picking on grammar and in an ex officio capacity.
You're an
but
English
I-
major.
As chair of ETD, I would just like to say that you all have been amazing. And I'm just so proud of the way that you formed an MOA committee and you've just been working and working and working on this. And I don't see any problem with our board having this move forward, and nor Middletown. I think we're all in agreement that this is an amazing piece of work. David, we couldn't have done it without you. Thank you so much. But thank you all for your service to Ninetown Transit. This is going to be, or to ETD, let me say that. Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie.
Thank you, Leslie.
It's been a pleasure to work with everyone, and we've done what we set out to do, which was a unanimous agreement on on everything. Let's see how it all plays out in the negotiating phase. So may I have a motion to adjourn
So moved.
Second,
from Laura and a second
second.
from Angus? The meeting is adjourned at 12:14. Thank you all.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.